I'd like to ask, how much do you value your identity, right? How much do you see yourself playing a direct hand in the identity that you build? You pick for yourself how you want to be, how you want to act, what you want to do on the day, and you may or may not pride yourself in how closely you can walk that line of how you define your identity and how you do well for yourself. If you are meeting your own expectations, are you predicting the future well? um, that's usually what helps people build identity, right? Is in their environment, being able to predict the future, see themselves in it, and act in a way that's hopeful, that sort of has determination, maybe, um, and really builds a trust in the way that you act. Whether you're 80 or whether you're 8, you've lived a life so far and you know what sort of works for you and for what you've experienced. And I want to talk all about that sort of in a sort of fleeting way and talk about my opinions on the good, the bad, and the ugly of our modern identity, my thoughts of what it means to play a role in the world, this very global cosmopolitan system, while still holding on to an individual's, somewhat virtuous idea of how to operate in the world. Because I got to be honest with you, there's too much incoherent, dissonant, horrible ways in which we communicate, being able to escape the noise of people being in this struggling cacophony of nonsense. Try to be one of the people that are raising their voice above this to, I don't know, talk it through, right? At the bare minimum, talk it through so you can demystify one more thing. One more thing. That's the point today. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of identity, and what we do about it with this modern technology. So we start off with this good idea of identity, the idea that you are working hard for yourself to build a trust. From the day that you are born, your body is providing inference, data, and systems to guide you as you operate. From then on, they're going to higher structures where you're instructed, trained, and then on self-supervised in order to enact upon the world however you see fit. There's a lot of similarities in bringing up of our people and how we are thinking of bringing up robots, right? How do you train things to not be manipulated? How do you train people to not be played? How do you make sure that we educate people to build a strong identity, but not go out and hurt people because of this identity? Not go out and forsaken great things because we think there's some conviction about the world. We think that there's some conviction about one identity over someone else's, and how to actually operate in a world that disagrees with you, even though you know there is some goodness in the way that you've operated, and just navigating that somehow. And so the good of identity is that effort, that good effort, that good faith effort to build something for a community or for a people that supports and grows alongside and is sustainable. And so we need to recognize that this sort of good faith, sustainable ethos is what we mean when we talk about people that enjoy a good identity, right? One that is able to grow and not kill, but grow and take in and support because we can. And there's sort of two options there. It's you either say because we can't, and there's some ways that people like to take that route, and there's a because we can, and there's some ways to take that route. So use that as my lens when we talk about identity and when I talk about the good of identity, of people building their skills, building what they believe to be virtue to grow and build sustainable systems. Not necessarily green energy, but I mean sustainable as in you do not starve and you do not choke in order to rise above. And that's a simple premise, right? And it does not mean the exclusion of, competition. It does not mean this complicated world of sharing without merit or virtue. It's a difficult line to walk, in which I hope to be able to talk with people about. Am I spitting nonsense about this, is what I ask. But let's keep moving. The bad of identity is sort of when you take these elements and you procure it in ways that restrict growth or seemingly restrict people's identity in their own attempts in curating their own successes. You don't strain the river in order to cross. It's this fundamental where you must respect the cosmic, the feedback systems which support what environment you're entering into. So what does that mean? What do I mean by that? Do I mean just anything new you need to accept with arms? It means no, you need to draw proper boundaries of identity. We have to understand there are limits to what we need, not just do it because it's always been this way. We need to not always use our full resources simply because they've erupted into our world. We need not be complacent and greedy to our resources. And what does that mean? It can mean in so many contexts. When we talk about land, when we talk about dialogue and ideas in a meeting, when we talk about making sure that people's voices are heard in a nation, we need to talk about the way that identity is a bad actor, a bad faith actor in our systems. And in this instance, in this good faith and this bad faith that I'm sort of structuring it to, this is big picture in what decisions you are actively making. And that's a big point, is that there is so much education that you can promote to someone to help build their active inference of all this information, of all of this persuasion and rhetoric in the world. You are educated to protect yourself and make the correct decisions you can based on what you're given, assuming what you're given is natural, is organic, is simply just happening. Sort of like back in the day when you'd get complaints about Instagram. It's like, Instagram is bad, not because it's forcing upon you this barrage of great things that people experience in this world. No, it's bad because your own fellow best friends in your school, in your workplace, are choosing to only show the best of the best. And we went from an active, sort of bad faith. We are putting out into the world things that show our best selves. And that was an awakening for us. We recognized that feels weird. I don't like that I'm not seeing this transparency into someone's life. But now we grow into an even more complicated stage, a more ugly stage, I argue. A stage where this is no longer our choice. A stage where, as people and other YouTubers have talked about, a stage where we are into a automation complacency, a place where you desire things, but you don't know the exact ways in which you are achieving the desire, right? You are somehow watching something, and based on liking something or not liking something, you are being served more material. Your life is changing, expanding, growing, just like a brain explores thoughts in a way which is not done by the mechanism of electro impulse in your brain. You are having a robot lift things for you in your brain. You want this block to go to that table, aka I want my enjoyment to be up to this level, 2 equal commands in robot world, and we're designing machines that are engineered in an ugly way for attention. And that's fundamental to how you build your identity, how you build your trust, how you build your decision-making engine is based on what you watch, is based on what you do, is based on what you're given. And that's a fundamental. You can say that about ants, you can say that about humans, you can say that about robots. What happens when things get ugly? I don't fucking know, okay? That's sort of a big problem. That's sort of why I'm here, is sort of how does the average person, woefully aware of the fact that it's possible that you are being influenced on a scale of unimaginable proportion, what do you do when you have to build an identity which is protecting not only against the environment that you're in, but the environments in which you create? You choose what systems that you get to exchange with online. How is our world being changed by a growing, massive number of people submitting themselves to this complacency, enjoying the complacency, building economy on the complacency? We are essentially running a gigantic social experiment, right? It's like America. We love those. We are running an experiment where we see what the benefit is of reduced cost thought. What is the pain when you have had a world in which makes the exchange of information so cheap? What happens when you have a world in which pushes technology to the point where we can acquire and exchange and utilize all of this data for the systems in which all of our populations interface with? Everybody has a phone, everybody has data, everybody knows how to interface with these systems, and the systems know how to interface back. This is obvious. This is fundamental. And it's weird, you know? Your identity is no longer all you. It's sort of all us. And maybe that's good. That's sort of what I alluded to in the beginning. Is identity meant to be this growth, this strategic, resourceful, sustainable growth that is all-encompassing? Is an identity meant to respect every nerve that's available? Or do nerves call naturally? We don't have good answers for these complex questions, but we know that we are developing ways to extract more than we can deal with. Well, people like me, people on YouTube, people all around are sort of just asking, like, we know exactly what's happening. We know why it's sort of there. We know what very few can do. We know how things proliferate in this world.